In the world of true crime, there are cases that haunt us, cases that horrify us, and cases that leave us asking questions we may never find the answers to. But every once in a while, a story emerges that feels different. It is darker, stranger, and so unsettling that it almost doesn't feel real. In 2012, the name Luka Magnotta spread like wildfire across headlines in Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, and far beyond. A young man from Toronto who desperately wanted to be famous, and who would do anything to achieve it. But Luka Magnotta didn't become known for acting, modeling, or reality TV. Instead, he gained worldwide infamy for one of the most disturbing murders ever captured on camera, and for the twisted trail of warning signs he left behind, stretching back years before the crime. This is the story of Luka Magnotta, a story of obsession, vanity, cruelty, and an international manhunt that gripped the world. To understand how Luka Magnotta came to commit such an unthinkable crime, we have to begin with his early life. Luka Magnotta was not born Luka Magnotta. He came into the world on July 24, 1982 in Scarborough, Ontario, under the name Eric Clinton Kirk Newman. His childhood was, by all accounts, deeply troubled. He grew up in a chaotic household where stability was hard to find. His parents, Anna Yurkin and Donald Newman, struggled to provide a stable environment. According to reports, his mother was strict and sometimes abusive, while his father battled mental health issues. The marriage eventually fell apart, and Eric bounced between relatives, developing feelings of abandonment and instability. From a young age, he seemed desperate for attention and validation. Schoolmates would later describe him as quiet, awkward, and often bullied. He didn't quite fit in anywhere, and this rejection seemed to fuel a deep desire to be noticed, to be admired, and perhaps to be envied. By his late teens and early 20s, Eric had already begun reinventing himself. He legally changed his name to Luka Magnotta, a name that sounded dramatic, European, and larger than life. He claimed it gave him a sense of identity, of importance. But for Luka, reinvention wasn't enough. He didn't just want to change who he was, he wanted the entire world to notice him. Sometimes, he even spread false rumors about himself, like claiming he was romantically involved with convicted schoolgirl killer Karla Homolka, one of Canada's most infamous criminals. Why would someone spread such disturbing lies about themselves? For Luka, the truth didn't matter. What mattered was attention. It didn't matter if people loved him or hated him, as long as they were talking about him. This obsession with fame and notoriety slowly morphed into something darker. Luka wasn't just craving recognition, he was craving infamy. Then the warning signs online. The first signs of Luka's disturbing behavior appeared online around 2010. Videos began to surface showing acts of animal cruelty, cats being tortured and killed by a man whose face was hidden, but who many online suspected was Luka Magnotta. Internet communities of animal lovers, activists, and amateur investigators quickly took notice. People in the United States, the UK, and Canada began working together online, determined to identify the man behind the videos. They believed he wasn't just dangerous to animals, he was dangerous to people. These online detectives repeatedly warned authorities, saying, "If this man isn't stopped, he will escalate." But little was done. The videos continued, and the manhunt for the mysterious cat killer turned into a chilling prelude to murder. The victim, Jun Lin. While Luka's online presence grew darker, another life was unfolding on a very different path. Jun Lin was a 33-year-old international student from Wuhan, China. He had come to Canada to study computer engineering at Concordia University in Montreal. Friends and classmates described him as kind, hardworking, and full of dreams for the future. Jun Lin was living thousands of miles from home, but he kept in close contact with his family, and was building a new life in Canada. He enjoyed music, food, and the vibrant diversity of Montreal. He had no idea that his path would tragically cross with Luka Magnotta's. Then comes the murder in May 2012. Luka Magnotta met Jun Lin. The details of how they first connected remain uncertain, but many believe it was through a dating app. On May 24, 2012, Jun Lin visited Luka's apartment in Montreal. What happened next is almost too disturbing to describe, but it was captured on a video that Luka himself uploaded online. The video, titled "One Lunatic, One Ice Pick," showed Luka stabbing Jun Lin repeatedly with an ice pick. The brutality continued as Jun Lin's body was desecrated in ways too horrific to recount in detail. Luka not only committed the crime, he staged it like a performance, filming it for the world to see. This was not just murder. It was a calculated act of performance violence meant to shock, disturb, and above all make Luka Magnotta infamous. The aftermath: the next day, horrifying discoveries began to emerge. Packages containing human body parts were mailed to political offices in Ottawa, including the Prime Minister's office. More packages were sent to schools in Vancouver. The media erupted. Headlines in Canada: the US, and the UK called him the Canadian Psycho, drawing comparisons to the film American Psycho. For days, the entire country was gripped by fear and shock. Meanwhile, parts of Jun Lin's body were discovered near Luka's apartment, and eventually, Jun Lin was identified as the victim. The international manhunt. By this point, Luka Magnotta had fled Canada. Using fake passports and disguises, he traveled across Europe, from Montreal to Paris, then eventually to Berlin, Germany. Interpol issued a red notice, essentially an international arrest warrant. Luka's face was plastered across headlines worldwide. Authorities in Canada, the US, and Europe worked together in one of the most high-profile manhunts of the decade. On June 4, 2012, Luka was finally captured. Ironically, he was caught in an internet cafe in Berlin, looking up news stories about himself. Even while on the run, Luka couldn't resist reading about his own notoriety. Then comes the trial in 2014. Luka Magnotta stood trial in Montreal. His defense argued that he was not criminally responsible due to mental illness. But the prosecution presented a different picture. Luka had planned the crime carefully, from filming it to mailing the body parts to ensure maximum media coverage. The jury deliberated for 8 days. In the end, Luka Magnotta was found guilty of first-degree murder, along with several other charges. He was sentenced to life in prison, with no chance of parole for 25 years. The Reflections, the story of Luka Magnotta leaves us with haunting questions. Could this crime have been prevented if authorities had taken the warnings from online communities more seriously? Did Luka's obsession with fame, fueled by the internet, push him toward murder? And what does this case tell us about the darker side of online notoriety? For Jun Lin's family, the tragedy is immeasurable. They lost a son, a brother, a friend, a young man who came to Canada for opportunity, only to encounter someone consumed by darkness. As for Luka Magnotta, he is remembered not as the celebrity he once dreamed of becoming, but as a killer who shocked the world. The Luka Magnotta case is not just about one man's crime. It is about the dangers of unchecked obsession, the failure to act on early warning signs, and the ways in which our digital age can both expose and encourage the darkest impulses. Luka wanted fame. In the end, he got it, but not in the way he had ever dreamed. If you found this case haunting, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into true crime stories from around the world. And tell me in the comments, do you believe Luka would have committed this crime if he hadn't had an audience online? I'll be reading. See you in my next episode.